early guilty plea in that big cocaine case.
And the rest of the cartel will be shitting themselves at the moment because one of the reasons you plead guilty this early is you've been offered a reduced sentence or immunity. Pure speculation, but as anyone who's ever watched a cop show on TV knows, there's only one reason you get offered a reduced sentence or immunity.
It means, let's make a deal.
Kenny Chen has just admitted trying to possess 200 kilograms of the 2.4 tonnes of cocaine seized by the DEA back in November. It was bound for WA, from where callous dealers were to distribute it around Australia, with absolutely no regard for the welfare of AFL footballers.
That was out of bounds!
Kenny was never going to actually possess 200 kilos of coke because WA cops had substituted the seized product with plaster of Paris.
The old switcheroo.
But he didn't know that when he travelled from Sydney to Perth on January 9 and still didn't know it when he was arrested in Carlisle during citywide raids. Those raids resulted in a dozen drug/sculpture provision smugglers being put in handcuffs.
Suspect in custody.
Copy that.
The other people arrested will now be wondering what Kenny has agreed to do in return for saying "you got me," if that's what transpired.
Poor old Kenny's going to have some enemies.
Kenny's quite possibly the most heavily protected man in Australia right now. A Mexican cartel has just lost $1 billion. Mexican cartels don't around if they think someone's a rat.
Oh my God, they killed Kenny!
Even if he hasn't talked, everyone's going to think he has. And you don't need to be a mafia don to know
it's always better with no witnesses.
Philip Lowe might need some protection.
Is there an Australian more despised right now than the 8th Governor of the Reserve Bank?
Boo!
Australia's central bank has been around longer than 1960, but prior to that year it was known as the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. In 1959, we passed laws to split that institution into two new bodies. The Reserve Bank of Australia was charged with issuing currency and looking after interest rates, and the Commonwealth Banking Corporation was a government-owned commercial bank. That bank. Lots of people in charge of the central bank, but none as hated as Phil.
Yeah, interest rates have been a lot higher than this before.
You can still get a home loan today that has a 5 in front of it. In the late 80s, you were paying 17, maybe even 18%. But who did we blame back then? Not Bob Johnson or Bernie Fraser. It was this guy.
I want to do you slowly.
The Federal Treasurer copped all the heat because we blamed him for letting the economy get so overheated that interest rate rises were necessary.
Your fault. Your fault.
Fast forward 30 years and we aren't blaming Jim Chalmers or Albo or even before them Morrison or Frydenberg. We're blaming Phil.
And a lot of people are hating him.
A lot, but not all. For every angry Gen Xer, there's a happy boomer.
Boomers.
When official interest rates go up, it's good for bank profits. That's why when Tuesday's rate announcement came out, the stock prices of the big four banks all went up.
Yeah, well, misery makes money.
Misery is coming in the form of a widening interest rate spread. That's the difference between what banks lend at and what they pay depositors. That's where the fat is. That's the profit. That margin gets slimmer when official rates drop because banks can only go so low on deposit rates before savers get pissed off and withdraw their money to invest it somewhere else. And the bank needs deposits because the amount of cash on hand in savings accounts is a key determinant of how many loans they can issue, the ratio set by government. When official rates go down, your mortgage rate and deposit rate both go down, but the deposit rate bottoms out earlier. The opposite happens when rates go the other way. The rate at which banks lend money keeps outpacing the rate given to savers.
So rising rates are only good for banks to a point.
Sweet spot is when people are stressed, but they're not defaulting. That's happening right now. Not that the boomers care, because what happens when banks make more money?
They pay more dividends.
And which demographic disproportionately owns shares in the banks, those safe, reliable, high-yielding bank stocks?
Yeah, retirees.
Yeah, a fair whack of the extra mortgage payments being made by Gen X, Gen Y and millennials is now going to their parents and grandparents in the form of higher Westpac or NAB dividend payments. The same parents and grandparents who are the beneficiaries of higher term deposit rates.
So it's a good time to be a boomer, but what can Jim Chalmers do about that?
Raising interest rates is not the only way to make people stop spending, to cool an economy. Median home loans now cost, an extra $1,000 a month to service? What if we were forced to put that grand into our superannuation fund?
Yeah, I suppose.
Same age, same income.
Still $1,000 we're not spending each month, so good for inflation. But instead of it disappearing into bank profits and fat bonuses for people like Matt Common or distributed to already comfortable retirees, it's incubated until we're in our 60s.
I like it.
Yeah, what if we were forced to pay an extra $1,000 a month in tax with the express purpose of paying off the national debt? Jim Chalmers wants to remake capitalism. Maybe start there, Jimbo.
Worth trying something.
Tell me about it. Cocaine's about to get a lot more expensive and the mortgage is going up.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
I'm Ben Harvey.
That's confidence. That's confidence. That's confidence. Once you know what you're doing, there's nothing stopping you. To take on the market with confidence, watch Trading Up, your daily finance update at thewest.com.au.